The most shocking thing Adanna ever saw happened in a room that smelled of sour milk. Princess Ifeoma, the king's only daughter, was screaming. Not a scream of anger, but of pure, dissolving agony. A single drop of clean, clear water had splashed onto her bare foot. And where it touched, her skin didn't just redden or blister. It vanished. It turned into a puff of white dust, revealing the stark, white bone beneath. The princess stared at her own dissolving flesh, her beautiful face twisted in horror. King Django burst into the room, his eyes wild with a father's terror. "More milk," he roared to the guards. "Bring more milk to seal it." But as Adanna hid behind the heavy door, her heart hammering against her ribs, one terrifying question echoed in her mind: what do you do when the princess is made of dust, and the only thing holding her together is the milk your starving village needs to live? 2 months earlier, in the vibrant village of Uzima, the problem began not with a scream, but with a quiet, hungry whimper. It was the sound of little Kofi, Adanna's 2-year-old brother. He lay on a mat, too weak to cry loudly, his belly swollen and his eyes too big for his thin face. The sun beat down on the thatched roofs of Uzima in the Kingdom of Mumbi. It was December, the dry season, and the earth was parched and cracked. But the real drought was not of water, but of milk. The rich, creamy milk from the village's famous brown cows had always been the lifeblood of Uzima, especially for the children. Now, for weeks, there had been none. Adanna, a brave and curious girl of 9, watched her mother, Momachi, pour the last cup of thin, watery porridge into Kofi's mouth. "Mama, why can't we have milk for him?" Adanna asked, her voice small. Momachi's eyes, usually bright with laughter, were clouded with a deep sadness. She looked towards the king's palace, a grand structure of red clay and wood that stood on the hill overlooking the village. "The milk is for the palace now, my child," Momachi whispered. "King Django has ordered it. Every drop from every cow goes to Princess Ifeoma. To keep her healthy." The way she said healthy made a shiver run down Adanna's spine. It sounded like a secret. The next morning, Adanna went to the village well. She saw her friend, Uduak, trying to soothe a crying baby calf. The calf's mother, a gentle cow named Bimp, stood nearby, her udder full and aching, but village guards with stern faces were milking her into a large palace barrel. "They take it all," Uduak said, tears in her eyes. "The baby calves get only water. They are getting weak." Anger, hot and fierce, bubbled up in Adanna's chest. She marched to the hut of Boba Tond, the oldest and wisest man in Uzima. "Boba," she demanded. "Why does one person need all the milk? Is the princess drinking a river of it?" Boba Tond sat under the ancient baobab tree, his face etched with worry. He pulled Adanna close, his voice a low rumble. "Listen, little lioness. The whispers say she is not drinking it." He paused, making sure no guards were near. "They say she bathes in it. Twice a day, a bath of pure milk." Adanna gasped. Bathing in food while children starved. It was an act of terrible vanity. But Boba Tond saw her anger. "There is more," he said. "Before this began, Princess Ifeoma was like a fish. She loved the river. Now, they say she fears water more than death itself. Something is very wrong in that palace." Adanna made a decision. She would see for herself. She told her parents she was going to gather firewood, but instead, she climbed the winding path to King Django's palace. Her plan was simple: get a job. At the palace gates, tall guards with sharp spears crossed them in front of her. "Go home, child," one said. But Adanna stood straight. "I am small but strong. I hear Mama Nkechi in the kitchen needs help scrubbing the pots that others cannot reach." The guards laughed, but one nodded. The head cook did complain of back pain. "Fine," he grunted. "But you work only in the kitchen. Never, ever go to the West Wing. That is where the princess stays." If you disobey, you will regret it. The palace kitchen was a world of steam and noise. Mama Nkechi, a large woman with a tired face, put Adanna to work instantly. Her job was not to cook, but to carry. She had to fetch the heavy buckets of milk from the courtyard and bring them to the bottom of a dark staircase that led to the forbidden west wing. The air in the hallway near those stairs always carried a strange, sweet-sour smell, like milk left in the sun. As she walked, Adanna watched. She saw the king's personal guards, faces like stone, take the buckets up the stairs. No ordinary servants were allowed to follow. One afternoon, Adanna was washing dishes next to a quiet serving girl named Zora. "Have you ever seen her?" Adanna whispered. Zora's hands shook as she scrubbed the pot. "Once, only her hand," Zora whispered back, her eyes wide with fear. She reached for a towel. It was white. Not a beautiful brown like ours. White like chalk. And it looked dry. Like the bark of a dead tree. Before Adanna could ask more, Mama Nkechi clapped her hands sharply. "No talking. The princess needs her evening bath. More milk." Adanna's curiosity burned brighter than the cooking fires. That night, Adanna could not sleep. The image of a chalk-white, dry hand haunted her. She thought of Kofi's hungry cries. She had to know the truth. When the moon was high, she slipped out of the servants' quarters. Using her knowledge from climbing trees in Uzima, she found a strong ivy vine creeping up the palace's outer wall. Heart pounding like a drum, she began to climb. It was dangerous and scary, but the thought of her brother's face gave her courage. She climbed until she reached a high window in the west wing, its curtains drawn but with a small gap. Peering through the gap, Adanna saw a sight that would forever be etched in her memory. The room was lit by oil lamps. In the center was a deep, copper tub, filled with glistening white milk. And in the tub sat Princess Ifeoma. She was stunningly beautiful, with long dark hair. But as Adanna watched, the princess lifted her arm from the milk to adjust her hair. The moment the air touched her skin, it began to change. The smooth, brown skin turned pale, then gray, and fine cracks appeared, like mud in a drought. The princess gasped in pain and quickly plunged her arm back into the milk. The cracks healed, the color returned. Adanna's blood ran cold. The milk wasn't a luxury, it was medicine. It was magic glue. And just as this terrifying truth settled in her mind, she heard a crash from inside the room. A young servant boy had tripped by the door, and a cup of drinking water had slipped from his tray. The water splashed, and a tiny droplet flew under the door, landing with a soft plink right on Princess Ifeoma's bare foot. The ear-splitting, dissolving scream that followed shook the very palace walls. Adanna clung to the vines, frozen in horror, as she witnessed the shocking event that would change everything, the cruel proof that Princess Ifeoma was not just cursed, but that water was her doom. Inside, King Django was roaring, his voice breaking with panic. But outside, listening, Adanna now held a dangerous secret. She knew the princess's terrifying weakness. And as she shimmied down the vine, her mind raced with a single, burning thought: this secret could save her village, or get her killed. King Django's roar was not just one of anger, but of a terrifying, breaking love. "You will not speak of what you saw," he thundered, his large hands gripping Adanna's small shoulders. She stood in the throne room, shaking but defiant, after being caught by a guard while climbing down the vine. The king's eyes were red from crying over his daughter's dissolving foot, which was now re-soaked in precious milk. "If one word of my daughter's condition reaches the village, your family's cows will be taken, and your home will be burned." Fear clenched Adanna's heart, but beneath it, the image of her brother Kofi's hungry face made her brave. She looked directly at the king. "The village already knows she is cursed, Your Majesty. They just don't know how. And they are dying because of it." Instead of throwing her in a cell, King Django did something strange. He made Adanna a permanent servant in the West Wing. You will bring the milk buckets to the door, he ordered, his voice cold. You will see the need up close. You will understand that her life is worth more than 1,000 villages. It was a cruel punishment disguised as a job. Every day, Adanna had to carry the heavy buckets, hearing Princess Ifeoma's faint, scratchy voice from behind the door saying, "Is there more?" "It is not enough." The sour smell of old milk clung to Adanna's clothes and hair. She felt trapped, a prisoner of the palace's terrible secret. 1 week later, while delivering a bucket at dawn, Adanna heard a different sound. Not a demand for milk, but a soft, sad song. It was Princess Ifeoma, singing a lullaby in a voice that cracked like dry earth. It was the same lullaby Mama Chi sang to Kofi. The unexpected sound made Adanna pause. She remembered Bobaton's words, she loved the river. This wasn't the voice of a vain monster. This was the voice of a trapped, suffering girl. A plan, fragile and dangerous, began to form in Adanna's mind. She couldn't fight the king. But maybe she could talk to the princess. Adanna waited for her chance. It came on a stormy afternoon. The king was in a crisis meeting, the cows were drying up, producing less milk. The guards were distracted, arguing about what to do. As she left the bucket by the door, she knelt and whispered through the keyhole. "Princess Ifeoma, the river misses your songs." There was dead silence from the room. Then, a shuffling sound came close to the door. "Who are you?" The voice was close, fragile. "I am Adanna from Uzima. The river is silent now. The children are too hungry to sing back to it." Adanna's heart hammered. Would the princess call the guards? "I remember the river," the princess whispered back, her voice full of a deep, aching longing. It was cool and kind. This is heavy and hot and it smells of sadness." Encouraged, Adanna whispered faster. "The milk that holds you is the milk that feeds us. My brother Kofi is too. He cries all night from the hunger in his belly." A soft, milk-white tear slipped under the door. "I did not know," the princess wept. "My father says the village gives willingly. He says I am healing." "You are not healing, princess," Adanna said, her courage solidifying. "You are stuck. And you are drowning our village to stay stuck." Suddenly, heavy footsteps pounded down the hall. The guards were returning. Adanna scrambled away just in time. But a connection had been made. The next day, when she delivered the bucket, a small, folded piece of parchment was tucked under the door. Adanna grabbed it. In shaky, elegant writing, it read, "Tell me about the sun on the river." "I forget." Day after day, Adanna delivered buckets and tiny messages. She described the children playing, the green plants after rain, the taste of fresh berries. Princess Ifeoma's notes back were filled with sorrow and fading memories of a world she could no longer touch. Little did Adanna know, their secret friendship was a spark that would soon start a fire. The extreme event that changed everything happened on a day of terrible heat. The head cowherd came to the palace gates, his head bowed in shame and grief. "Your Majesty," he cried out to King Jengo, who stood on the balcony. "The cows, they are empty. Their milk is gone. They are bones covered in skin. We have nothing left to give." King Jengo's face turned the color of storm clouds. He looked not at the cowherd, but up at the window of the west wing, where his daughter lived. A terrible resolve hardened his eyes. "Then we must use what is left," he declared, his voice booming across the silent village. "Take the cows. Use their blood. Mix it with the last of the milk and the fat from their bones. My daughter will bathe in their life force if she cannot have their milk." A wave of horror washed over Uzima. Bathing in blood was an abomination, a crime against nature and the spirits. The villagers wailed. Adanna, hearing this from the palace courtyard, felt panic and fury erupt within her. This was the final step into madness. She ran, not to the kitchen, but straight to the forbidden west wing door. She didn't knock. Ifeoma, she shouted, ignoring all rules. Your father will kill the sacred cows. He will use blood. The spirits will curse this land forever. The door flew open. For the first time, Adanna saw Princess Ifeoma up close, wrapped in a milk-soaked shroud. Her beauty was eerie, like a painting, but her eyes were pools of a profound sadness. Behind her, the room was empty except for the half-full tub. I must stop him, the princess said, her voice suddenly clear and strong. Father. Princess Ifeoma's voice echoed down the grand staircase as she walked down, Adanna at her side. King Jango, directing guards towards the car sheets, spun around. His anger melted into pure fear. Ifeoma. No. Go back. The air will hurt you. It hurts me more to know what I have become, she said, stepping into the main hall. The servants and guards gasped. In the fuller light, the fine cracks on her skin were visible. She looked at her father, her expression gentle but firm. You brought me back because you loved me. But this is not life, father. It is a slow, hungry death for everyone. I hear the cries of the village now. I feel their hunger in my dust. King Jango fell to his knees, sobbing. I cannot lose you again. Princess Ifeoma walked past her father, straight to the giant palace doors that led to the outer courtyard and the village beyond. The guards were too stunned to stop her. Adanna followed, her heart in her throat. Open the doors, the princess commanded. With a creak, the heavy doors swung open. The people of Uzima, gathered in fearful protest, fell silent. They saw their princess, shrouded in white, standing at the threshold. Above, the sky, which had been a harsh blue for months, was gathering dark, heavy rain clouds. Thunder rumbled in the distance. Princess Ifeoma smiled a real, beautiful smile for the first time in months. She looked at Adanna, then at her weeping father, and finally at her people. You gave me your life, she said to them, her voice carrying on the wind. Now I give you back yours. She stepped out of the palace, onto the hot stones of the courtyard, and lifted her face to the darkening sky. The first fat drop of rain fell. It landed on her forehead. A hiss of white steam rose, and a small patch of her skin dissolved into fine, glittering dust. She didn't scream. She spread her arms wide. The sky broke open, and the blessed, drenching rain poured down. As the water touched her, Princess Ifeoma dissolved, not in agony, but in peace. She turned into a swirling, beautiful mist that mixed with the rain and fell upon the dry, thirsty earth of Uzima. The curse was broken. The village was saved. And as the people stood in the healing rain, their mouths open in awe, they knew the girl made of milk was finally free. King Jango bowed his head, his tears mixing with the rain, finally understanding that love sometimes means letting go. And Adanna, the brave girl from Uzima, felt the cool, clean water wash away the last of the sour milk smell, knowing she had helped to bring the balance back to her world.